Aeolian Hall brings a lot of people together. I believe that there's some sort of magic in this place, and I believe that everybody that steps into Aeolian Hall for the first time will feel that magic.
The Aeolian Hall has quite a rich history in our community. It started actually back in the 1940s with a hall that burned down in the 1960s.
Clark Bryan bought the hall in 2004 and began the process of turning it over into a charitable organization. He's been able to do so much with starting El Sistema Aeolian, the Pride Men's Chorus, the Rebel Heart Collective, and again really raising that culture of excellence in East London.
I decided to launch a UNESCO and TED award-winning program called El Sistema here at the Hall. Wasn't sure if it was going to work in this community, but it's a free after-school music program for kids who would not normally have the opportunity to have an enriched music program.
A program like El Sistema has a huge impact on the youth in that it gives them confidence and it gives them the tools necessary to escape the poverty, whichever kind of poverty they're facing in all its different forms.
It's fun and very collaborative sometimes. People provide you a lot here.
I wanted to join because I really never got to be in programs like this because of my disabilities.
We have a wide range of socioeconomic backgrounds among our participants, so we have the opportunity for kids all over London from different backgrounds and ethnicities and family backgrounds to be able to be part of a team together without any of those barriers you might see with other traditional organizations.
Music to me is mostly my life because I love listening to it, and so joining this program made it better for me.
I already know 2 instruments. Wait, make that 3 because I know a bit of piano, violin, and a bit of recorder.
Some of the children are from refugee situations or they're immigrants. Just being around them and the joy that they have and learning from them has really, for me, been a personal growth.
Everything that I see in our programming, our education programs, is all about giving opportunities for people to be inspired and get different perspectives through art and culture. We launched Pride Men's Chorus London, what would normally be called a gay men's chorus. In the rest of the world, we decided to open it up to men of all gender identifications. Its purpose is to enjoy music and through the experience of performance, help open minds and hearts.
Clark and I just thought it would be a really good social experience for the kids to work together with Pride Men's Chorus. We first had that experience when we had a concert with Matt Alber and the men's chorus was singing backup.
The idea of the synergy between the men, many of whom were ostracized when they came out of the closet as gay men, and many of the children in our program, actually many don't have parents. So the idea of coupling up that socially has been a really remarkable thing for me, and we've already heard feedback about it and how it's positively impacting lives.
As soon as we heard and saw what potential that had, we said, we got to do this more often. So we have done it twice since. When people perform music in a group, it's more than just music. It's also a group expression.
Aeolian Hall is unique in what it offers to London in terms of the arts and culture, in terms of what it is doing within Old East Village, but also the greater community.
The musical productions are structured with a view to try to make music accessible to everyone, different kinds of music accessible to everyone. So there's jazz, there's classical, there's roots, there's contemporary, there's singer-songwriter. There are all these different facets of this great field of music, and we try and bring some of each into the Aeolian because they each have kind of their own demographic and their own audience.
We launched a new professional orchestra called Rebel Heart Collective, trying to change the lens on classical music and the access point to classical music.
I don't think we should distinguish between classical music and other kinds of music. I think that there's some barriers that are artificial that shouldn't be there. I know that the experience I have of teaching, I've been teaching for a long time, that I have students who say to me that music's made them a better person.
Being a classical pianist and coming from that tradition, I really believe that serious changes need to happen because it is still very much held in the hands of the elite in our society, which was never the intention.
Aeolian Hall is a really professional venue from the way that it's run, the ticket sales, the people that come here, they're all here to listen to music. They're music lovers. So for me, I always get the most nervous when I play here at Aeolian Hall because I feel like as soon as I step onto the stage, the people here are here for a show.
There is a kind of magical resonance to the place, and the moment you first make a note of music, it just rings through the hall in this magical way. And you know right away it's going to be an amazing concert. I hope Aeolian Hall is around for hundreds and hundreds of years. I think it's well on its way. I hope they keep the doors open and keep the music flowing because what they're doing there is very, very special. And I can't wait to see what's next.
So I sort of knew what I wanted from a performance hall, and when I walked into this space, I knew this is where I wanted our very first show to play.
You know, singing and making music is really important to me, but it's not all that music is about. It's about getting together.
When I play here, it always feels like I'm with friends. The hall itself is almost like a person to me. There are all these facets in the Aeolian that are kind of bubbling away, and it's so different than most venues that you would see in terms of what they do. Here it's really limitless. It's a community in itself. So I've never had a life without music. I can't imagine what that would be like. The hall is wonderful, the volunteers are fantastic, the people that are behind the scene, the ones that are working so hard at the bar, selling tickets.
The volunteer experience here is amazing. It's like extended family. Meet nice people and you become friends with lots of them.
We couldn't survive without the volunteers. The volunteers are the core of Aeolian and El Sistema. There's very few paid positions, so we really rely on the volunteers to do all the other jobs and make the hall run.
This place has a long history of being the center of its community, and I think because of Clark and the people that work here and volunteer here, it continues to have that role in this community.
The Aeolian Hall, it needs volunteers because it's a community centre, a focal point. It needs people who believe in what's happening.
Aeolian has grown in that when I first came, there probably were, maybe half a dozen, 10 shows in a month. Now, some months we can have a show 5-6 nights a week.
The future of Aeolian Hall, in my vision, is strong and bright, and it continues to grow more and more as a place where people come to have their soul nurtured in the performances that they experience.
I feel that we're an organization that's open to change and experimentation and risk-taking. Every program we've launched here, every step we've taken, we've never had the money to do it. Unfortunately, the majority of the world does not work that way. The majority of the world is paralyzed in fear and is not willing to take risks. So we hope to set an example of achievement through risk-taking as a really important role that it's maybe not one that people think of first and foremost, but the story of the Aeolian is basically against the odds.
If somebody is doing something good and it works and it's the right thing for the community, you can't not support it.
It's all about values in the end. It's all about who we are as people. We sometimes lose sight of where we're going, who we are, what we believe. And if the Aeolian can act as a catalyst to remind us of that, that is really in my heart to be at the foundation level for what we do here.
Ian, so great to see you. Thank you so much for doing this today.
Oh, great to see you too. At least we're all still smiling. You know.
Yeah, we got to keep our humor through this, that's for sure.
That's right.
Yeah, so tell me, I want to start out with asking you a big question, which is, you've been involved with music for a long time. How did you get the bug for that?
Well, I suppose it goes way back to, I guess, when I was 12 years old, if you want. I actually, no, it probably goes back further than that, because I started taking piano lessons when I was 5. And I did very well with my piano. I got up to grade 8 level by the time I was 11.
Wow.
And then I moved to England with my family. My dad was a professor at McMaster University. We had a sabbatical, or he had a sabbatical. So we lived in England in Cambridge for a year. And I went to Cambridge Grammar School for Boys, second form. That was my grade 8 year. And that same year, 63, 64, was sort of the emergence of the Beatles. And I have this little story about the Beatles, which shows that I didn't know too much about them at the time. I was walking back home from school and noticed this huge crowd out in front of the movie theater downtown. And I mentioned this to my mom and said something's going on there. And she had to go downtown to shop, which wasn't too far from where we lived. So she asked what was going on and came back and told me it was a group called the Beatles. They were debuting, or, it was the opening night of their movie, A Hard Day's Night. So, I don't know if any of the Beatles were there, but the next day at school, I mentioned this to one of the kids in the class, and he said, "You haven't heard of the Beatles? Man, are you square?" Or whatever the terminology was back then. So he said, "I got a spare EP. Remember those extended play 45s you could get?" Anyway, he sold it to me. So that was basically my first music purchase when I was 12 years old, of the Beatles, an EP, and I listened to it at home. Thought it was fantastic. I went down to Miller's Music Store in Cambridge and bought their first album, which was called With the Beatles. And that was how my music collecting started. And
it's continued to this day, I bet.
It has. And
that basement of yours full yet?
Yes, too full.
Last time I saw it, you could barely move down there.
I have to do something about that, because it's something that I can't take with me, when it's time to go. So I have to figure out some things to do with it. But anyway, that's another story. When I went to university, I came to Western in 1969. And when I came to Western, I amazed many of the first years, and softs as well, that I came to Western with a LP collection of 500 albums. Wow. And and people were like, "What the hell? I've never seen that many albums." So anyway, moving ahead, in my second year university, the Gazette had an ad in it for a radio station startup. They were going to start Radio Western on campus. So I answered the ad, and I was one of the first 6 to put Radio Western on the air. You know what? I had the music knowledge, so I was the music librarian automatically because I had all this music, you know, and so
Play your albums, or
yeah. Now, how that happened, like we didn't get on the air at Western immediately. We had to get equipment in there. We had to figure out where we were going to put the station and stuff like that. So it ended up being in a spare room in Somerville House in the hallway. That's where we kind of started up our radio station. So people could see us, and it was a way to promote the fact that there was really a radio station on closed circuit at Western, you know. So, but CFPL Radio at the time was encouraging young people to get involved in media, in radio broadcasting. So when CFPL heard about it, they wanted to support us and offered us a time slot on Saturday night on AM. So we got to do our first radio show, public radio show on CFPL AM in the spring of 1971. And yes, that's right, spring of 1971. And I don't think our Saturday night radio shows on AM lasted very long because our music choices were way outside of the conservative programming that existed. So I think it was either Bill Brady or you know, whoever, Bud Knight, who were in charge at the time, decided, well, there's nobody using the midnight to 6 slot on FM. So we can offer this to the students to run their own programming. You know, nobody's going to listen to it, you know, but it'll be good. We can say we're supporting, you know, the kids getting their radio careers going, you know. And so we did midnight to 6 on CFPL FM for a number of years until one day, one of our DJs decided to play the recording of The Joy of Sex, interspersed with songs like the Rolling Stones, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, and other things that, you know, you could read into The Joy of Sex. And this butted right up to Bruce Love's morning radio show, which started at 6. And Bruce Love was ultra conservative, very religious guy, and made a huge fuss about this. So all of a sudden, we were not doing midnight to 6. We were doing midnight till 4. And we had to play recorded programming for the last 2 hours that was more appropriate leading into the morning show. We did almost 2 years of the 6-hour show. So that was great learning for me and others. Very early on, I think in 71, I was hired as a board operator at CFPL. And as a keener and music lover, I would let my music knowledge be known to the powers that be. And eventually I was named music librarian for FM. And then I was named music director for FM. I got to produce all kinds of different music shows, from classical to jazz to rock, even news commentary. I got 27 different radio shows under my belt in the time I was there, because it was the time when the new FM regulations were put in place. So all FM radio stations in Canada had to do local programming. So this was a tremendous learning opportunity for me. So I got on the air. I had my own radio show, easy listening show on FM called After 5. I did co-host, well, no, I was alternate host for the Night Sounds jazz radio program that Janice Zolf was hosting. In fact, I remember Janice Zolf coming into the station as a 16-year-old intern, you know, very keen. And I also remember Gary Ennett coming into the station as a
Wow.
16-year-old intern, and Marie Baltrell, her and her mother came in to see me when I was music director and presented me with their very first single release, hoping we would play it, you know. So stuff like that. But anyway, I had a 20-year career in radio as a music director on air, producer, and program director in Windsor Radio for 10 years. And then in 1991, I got, I guess I had to make a decision as to what I was going to do. The radio station in Windsor was changing to an alternate rock format. And I made a pitch to stay as program director, but they ultimately chose somebody else to do that job. So then I had to make a decision whether to stay in a lesser position or move on. So the same year, my wife left me for somebody else. So it was not a great year, 1991. So I ended up moving back with my parents for a couple of years and took a left turn into nonprofit arts. Got involved with creative arts in Hamilton and started working for Festival of Friends and Earth Song festivals under Bill Powell there, and sold sponsorships. And then I got the opportunity to come back to London as director of development for Orchestra London. And I did that from 1993 to 1999. And during that time, Lou Dalton, who was the librarian at Orchestra London, and I had a love of Celtic music and that we each knew about, and we decided to produce a concert together at South Secondary School. And that was the very first concert that I ever produced independently with Lou. And we did it with a band called Celtic Offspring from Sarnia. And the day before the concert, we'd sold about 10 tickets. And the day of the concert, we ended up selling enough tickets to pay the band what we promised them, and we each got a bottle of scotch out of it. so from and
Well,
but I was also,
sometimes you don't even get that, right?
Yeah. So that was my first taste of independent promotion, and I was also involved in the Cuckoo's Nest. When I came back to Orchestra London, Cuckoo's Nest Folk Club, when I came back to London in 1993, I looked up Alistair Brown, who was one of the principals in the original Cuckoo's Nest, which was running out of Luther House opposite the University Gates in the early 70s. And the club had sort of fizzled out in the early 80s when I was away. It had nothing to do with me, but it just, the volunteer support and energies just weren't there to keep it going. So when I came back, I decided to look up Alistair, as I mentioned, and asked him what had happened to the club. And he told me, and I said, well, that's no good. We got to start it up again. So we started it up again in 1994. Wow. And it's been going ever since at Chaucer's. And Alistair, very early on, he was the sort of the front man, the MC, and he did the bookings. But very early on, he passed the bookings on to me because he didn't really like that part. He just liked performing and being the MC. And then he moved to England in 2002 when he retired teaching at Central High School. And so I became the MC as well as the booker, promoter, et cetera, as the volunteer for the Cuckoo's Nest. So it's been going very successfully until COVID hit. At Chaucer's all this time, you know.
Yeah. So why don't we get there right away then and say, what has this past year been like for you during COVID?
Well, it's been quite quiet, really. I would say I'm pleased that I was able to participate in some of the music conferences that I would have attended in person, virtually. One of the things that I enjoyed most about working as, volunteer with Sunfest, board of directors with Goderich Celtic Roots Festival, employee of Sunfest, was the opportunity to travel to international destinations for music conferences. I got to see music all over the world representing, those three organizations. It was fantastic. So in COVID times, I still got to participate in the English Folk Music Expo, the Dublin, Ireland Trad Fest, the Celtic Connections and Showcase Scotland and the Folk Alliance International in Kansas City. So, that was something, and I think they all did a fantastic job of presenting their live music and having the seminars and keeping people connected, So I think in these COVID times, it's important to keep connected as much as possible with, your peers, and offer encouragement, and they'll offer it back to you. But as far as the Cuckoo's Nest, it's been very quiet. We haven't ventured into any virtual performances. Sunfest has been very active, doing lots of virtual presentations, which is great. And Goderich had a very successful virtual festival last year and is going to do another virtual festival this year. So, keeping connected and also with the Canadian Celtic Choir. Have been singing in that since 1997. Met my wife in the choir. We got married in 2004 and have a daughter. And so it's been a great thing to do together. She took some time off when her daughter was small, and she was working, but has rejoined the choir in the last 2 years. And definitely enjoy singing. I am in part of a group called the Musical Gathering with some local musicians, and we get together virtually once a month, and it's like a song circle, so we all take turns and sing a song to each other. So I'm the only a cappella singer in the group. I do play instruments, but I've chosen to do, since mostly what I do is keyboard, in a Zoom setting, I just sing a cappella. So I'm the only one who does that in the Musical Gathering.
Oh, wow. So you've been busy.
And one more thing, I do take private voice lessons still virtually. From Paul.
That's a tricky one. That's a really tricky one. I know what it's like to teach piano. I can't imagine teaching voice, but do you pre-record some stuff for that?
Well, I think, no, I don't. We just, we do vocal exercises and I sing a cappella back to Paul, and, we work on stuff, and, he may play accompaniment, on Zoom, and
mute you. That's what tends to happen in our Pride Men's chorus. We're rehearsing everything and everyone's singing, but everybody's been muted, right? Because
exactly.
Yeah, otherwise it just doesn't work at all.
Oh, no, it's terrible, right? It never syncs up properly.
I hope we get some new technology out of this disaster.
Well, actually, I don't know. Paul mentioned something to me called Jamulus.
Yes, I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay, which he thought was maybe an alternative.
There's some things that can help for sure. Yeah. Ian, great to see you. Thank you so much for taking. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know you a little bit better. So, throughout my interviews with artists, it's been fascinating to know how people got their start in music. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I had a friend whose brother had a guitar, and he had some Dave Clark 5 records and a book on easy guitar chords. And when I was in about grade 6, all those things came together in a vain attempt to impress girls, and mostly so you know, it's most of my musical education has been sort of catch as catch can. I've done a lot of self teaching on the guitar, and I mean, in those days, I was actually interested in a lot of music. I liked a lot, you know, I liked a lot of rock music, but I also liked folk music, and I don't know why. I grew up in a family of people who loved history, and I think that aspect of a lot of folk music appealed to me as well. And so those two threads have always been sort of equally important in what I like to listen to, and what maybe not so much what I like to play. I've definitely sort of more stuck to the folk side of things as far as my own performances are concerned. But I started off with a guitar, and then and of course everybody else played guitar, and I didn't want to be compared to them because I wasn't as good anyway. So, you know, I started playing the dulcimer and the banjo and things like that. And it's always easier if nobody can compare you to anything. So you can get away with way more.
Well, I think you're very modest, but I just want to touch on that. One thing you mentioned, that you grew up in a household with people who were interested in history. So
yeah, well, my dad was the history teacher at Waterford District High School.
Wow.
And my mom had been a librarian before, and then she became a librarian again afterwards, after he died. And they had they had been archaeologists as well, in a part-time capacity. And when I was a little kid, I used to get dragged away on digs. Actually, I'm sort of looking forward to, because we're going back up to St. Joseph's Island just next week, and going up and digging up the old fort there when I was about 8. And that was real hands-on history. But the other part of that whole scene was that this was the really early 60s, and who was digging up these sites were university students. And university students had guitars and banjos and hootenannies on Saturday night. So it was really fun being a part of that scene as a little kid, and seeing the, just the idea that you could have a guitar or a banjo and take it around to a party, and it was another opportunity for fun.
That's interesting. Well, I know you and I share some roots in that we were both born in Simcoe. I didn't realize was it your father who was a teacher then?
Yeah, my dad was a teacher.
Yeah, my dad was a teacher too, and he taught at the Simcoe High School. So, small world, right?
Yeah, it sure is.
The guitar obviously is a very portable instrument as well, and so you over the years, I've noticed you've played a lot of folk festivals, and you've been very active as a musician, but you've also done some other things. Do you want to talk about that?
When I finished high school, I went away to art college. I went to Sheridan College.
Wow.
And took animation in the early days of the animation.
Wow, that's
Sheridan. And I really enjoyed it. I still like animation. But after graduating and working for a couple of years, I realized I really wasn't very good at it. And I was good at other aspects of visual art. And so I kept on doing some of those, working as an illustrator. And just because I knew a lot of musicians, I kept, I'd been playing music all through college and afterwards. And that was the sort of thread of my life that just never disappeared. But when I started doing album covers for people, oh, wow. And people I knew started making records, and they thought, well, yeah, you can do art, sure, you could do a record cover, and sometimes they were right. But I ended up doing quite a lot of that over the years, and then with the advent of sort of computer-assisted design and composition and stuff, it got away from me for a while, where I didn't know how to do the stuff anymore because I had grown up in the, rubber cement and photostats era. And then one of my sons got interested to fall into that line of work, and I got him to teach me how to do it again. So I sort of got myself back into the game, and I'll tell you, the computer is just way better than a pot of rubber cement. And so I still do a fair bit of that, and I do painting and printmaking as well, and those three things are the main part of my life. I did work in museums as well. There, the history nerd thing returned, and between the 1980s and about 2013, I worked in a bunch of different museums, from Black Creek Pioneer Village in Toronto, and then a couple of community museums, the Norwich Museum down in Oxford County, and then the Port Dover Harbor Museum in Port Dover. But the whole time I was doing all that, I was doing music as well.
So you must have had busy evenings of music then.
Yes, I had busy years of everything, because I never I shouldn't say I didn't learn to balance it. I did learn to balance it, or else I wouldn't still be alive at this point. But yeah, there were a lot of days when you would work a full day at some job and then go off and play a gig, and have to turn around at the end of it and drive right back home because you had to do the day job the very next morning.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure. That's actually the reality for a lot of musicians. People don't realize that. I was thinking, of stories like even the famous opera singer Ben Heppner, for a long time worked in construction, right? Before he got his big breaks, balancing his singing, of course. In the last few years, what are some of the projects that you have enjoyed doing?
Well, actually, the band that is playing tonight at the Aeolian, the Sandplains Pickers, is just about my favorite musical project of the last little while. And we don't have any CDs, or we've never done any recordings, but we're people who've known each other for a long time. And Darren and Allison Schott are just they're a husband and wife team who sing and play like a dream as a duet, and have worked in all kinds of other bands. And then working with Shane Cook, who I've known since he was a young teenager, a fiddle virtuoso, and they're all great people. And we also sometimes play with Matt Raitt, who sometimes plays bass and electric guitar with us. For tonight, just pandemic exigencies forced us to cut the band down to a quartet for the lives for the stream. But that's been a really fun project, playing with people who are so good at what they do, and also playing in a band that's got 3 lead vocalists, which is really fun because you can pass stuff around. I mean, it's such a luxury. You sort of feel like, groups like The Band, that had 3 lead vocalists, so you never got tired of the same voice singing all the time, and people can chime in, and there are also 3 songwriters in the group, and Shane writes great fiddle tunes, and so does Darren. So there's no shortage of new material all the time. And we actually got together for a concert in Waterford at the Old Town Hall, where we did a whole concert of songs that were written in and about Norfolk County.
Wow.
So we had lots of original ones, and a couple by other writers, and Bruce Milner, and one by Rick Danko from the band, and that was the excuse to get the group together, and we had so much fun doing it. We've stuck with it for the last 4 years.
So when you say you have 3 lead vocalists, I assume you're going to be singing some harmony as well?
Oh yeah, we do lots of harmony singing, but 3 lead vocalists who sing their own songs.
Wow.
Darren will sing the Darren songs, and Allison sings the Allison songs, and I sing the Ian songs, and then we'll chime in with 3-part harmonies on anything that comes along that seems to suit that.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. So, tell me, it's hard to avoid this subject. What was the last year and a half like for you?
It hasn't been too bad for me because, I mean, as I said earlier, I've got a lot of irons in a lot of different fires, and I'm also of an age where a certain amount of my career is behind me, and I'm self-employed, and being a self-employed folk singer slash painter slash printmaker means that you can actually, you might even not notice the pandemic for a while. But although I have to admit, I did a lot more art. I did a lot of painting, and luckily found ways to sell them as well too. So that was good. That was the one thing I was worried. I thought, well, it's fine to. It was especially during the first lockdown. I was churning out the paintings and happy with the results, but I had to start wondering if I was going to end up with a warehouse full of these things by the time it was over. But there were people who were doing online art shows, and we did do the usual Norfolk Artists Studio Tour. Went ahead as usual last September, and everybody was wearing masks and stuff, but people still came around, and so the art part of my business didn't suffer that much, and I ended up doing musical things, live stream programs, and making little videos for people who were putting other projects together, some museums and schools and things like that. So I managed to keep busy. But I'll tell you, the first time I went out and played a full set, where it wasn't just doing 45 minutes or so in front of the webcam, you went, oh, well, that was hard work, wasn't it?
What is really hard is when you don't have the audience feedback, right?
Yes, it absolutely is, and it's funny. When I'm doing solo things, in some ways it's easier because you can kind of think of it as it's almost like it's like a one-person show, and it almost becomes more like a theatrical thing, and you can work the camera a little bit, and you can do things and just sort of direct yourself. But I found with the band, of course, you're thinking about 40 other things every second that you're up there, so it's a little bit harder. You tend to just sort of focus on them a little more than you do your audience out in vacuum land.
Yeah, it's certainly something all the performers have been sort of commenting on, what it's like not to have the applause at the end of a song and so on. But I know that people at home really, really appreciate having that music. I'm sure for a while we're going to continue to have people who are going to want to stay home, and still a little bit cautious even when we can.
We're getting into kind of a hybrid moment at this point where the people are sort of swinging both ways. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So we're hoping to keep that hybrid model for a while, especially with our new recording capacities at the hall. It's really been great to, have the Trillium Foundation support us getting that in place. And I can see a great opportunity for the future. And of course, you do realize this virtual concert is going to be captured forever, right? Which is something you can remark back to. It's not one of those fleeting live streams. It's going to be a high quality video for the long haul. So,
which makes it slightly hair-raising when the band hasn't played together for a year.
Oh, you know, and I heard that from everybody. As a matter of fact, some people have come in and rehearsed for like 3-4 hours before they even do it, because they just haven't sung for so long, you know?
Well, that's it. Yeah. So, well, this is a hell of a first gig, right?
That's right. Yeah. And then, of course, the pressure of the camera and the recording and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But I hope the experience will be really positive for you. And, you know, just giving everybody this inspiration at this time in history is such a gift. And we're so grateful that you were willing to do this with your colleagues. And I just want to thank you again for that, and wish you the best as we move forward, and hopefully we'll get you back to the hall soon with a real audience, not a virtual one. I mean, they are a real audience, they're just not in that room, right?
One that we can smell.
Oh yeah, oh God, yes. There's all of that too, right? I don't know how do you think people are going to be with that, right? Masks off and smelling each other. It's just been like we've been trying to avoid all of that.
Yeah, I know.
And now we're going to be saying, oh yeah, we can do that again. Are you sure?
Yeah, that's exactly how it feels.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much, and looking forward to the concert, and wish you the best on your dig, or whatever it is you're doing on your vacation.
Oh yeah, we're not doing we're teaching in a music camp.
Oh, you're teaching at a music camp. Oh,
Yes,
wow.
That's what we're doing up there. Yeah, but that's where the dig was.
That's where so you're going to revisit where the dig was.
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to take a little pilgrimage there.
Nice. Well, I hope everybody's super engaged and inspired, I'm sure, by you, and that you have a wonderful time. And thanks again for this today, Ian.
Well, thanks for the opportunity.
Until the next time.
Thank you. That was the Gilbertville Gallop, named after the town of Gilbertville, which is a suburb of Delhi. So you know it's a great place.
It is August, you know.
It is. We're getting into August, and when I was in high school, there was a farm I grew up in Waterford, and there's a farm up by Scotland that used to have barn dances in the tobacco pack barn. Real old-fashioned dances with a midnight lunch and bar in the car. And one of those country bands that could play everything from Elvis to Frank Sinatra, and every once in a while one of the fiddle players, one of the guitar players would put down the guitar and pick up a fiddle, and that was where guys like me learned how to dip and dive, and that's what this song is all about.
on an August night when the moon is high and the stars are bright in an August sky. If you wanna go, I can drive you down on a gravel road at the edge of town. There's a dog barking on the ridge, listen to the frogs as they cross the bridge, turning up the lane into Arthur's farm where the lights are blazing in the barn. Light your way through the door, half the county's on the floor. Dip and dive, shuck and jive. If the band slows down, you can yell for more. Tune up the fiddle, rising up the bow. Chicken in a bread pan, kicking up dough. Shake your shoes till the feet are sore. Tamarack down on the old pine floor. Ba-da-li-da-dum, ba-li-da-da-da, da-li-da-dum, ba-li-da-da-da-da-da-dum. The band knows how you wanna feel. They play blue suede shoes and the St. Anne's rail. String of pearls, sweet and slow. Dusty Miller and Tobacco Road. When the party's done and the night is still, there's a place I know up along the hill where the fireflies dance and the crickets play, and we won't go home till the break of day. Fight your way through the door, half the county's on the floor. Dip and dive, shuck and jive. If the band slows down, you can yell for more. Tune up the fiddle, rising up the bow. Chicken in the bread pan, kicking up dough. Shake your shoe till your feet are sore. Tamarack down on the old pine floor. Tamarack down on the old pine floor. Tamarack down on the old pine floor.
So we got some tunes now.
We're going to do 3 tunes. Cattle in the Cane, Kitchen Girl, and June Apple.
June apple. Apples don't come in June. What's that all about?
Well, they must taste, green apples before they're ripe.
I guess, yeah, they're pretty.
It sounded like a nice crisp apple.
Got a song from Allison.
We're going to do a song that I wrote for this fellow on my left, all about
this fellow.
This fellow, the fellow right next to me, and about the realities of being in love.
I've never fallen out of love with you. How could I ever? You never made me blue. I've never fallen out of love with you. How could I ever? No one compares to you. While other girls are crying over love that's got them mad, I'm happy, no denying, without even trying. I've got a love they wish they had. I've never fallen out of love with you. How could I ever? No one compares to you. Now listen up, my girlfriends, I might be bragging on to you. I'm lucky, no denying, I'm feeling special. He loves me, he don't love you. I've never fallen out of love with you. How could I ever? No one compares to you. Maybe for a minute, oh, maybe once or twice. Maybe, baby, I doubted you, but then I remember all the crazy things you do and how they made me fall in love with you in the first place. I've never fallen out of love with you, but I must admit it's come close a time or two.
Thank you, Allison.
Yes.
So we're called the Sandplains Pickers, and the reason for that is that most of us are originally from the Norfolk Sandplains. I'm not sure what plains you're from. You're from the Dorchester Great Plains.
It was the sandy part of Dorchester.
That was the sandy part of Dorchester. And down where Darren and Allison and I all grew up in Norfolk County, there was a lot of tobacco farming went on, and Darren was no stranger to that.
Yes, and we're going to do a song directly about working in the tobacco fields. And there were many jobs in the tobacco harvest scheme. There was a table gang where they put the tobacco on a conveyor belt and put it up into the kiln where it was cured to be smoked. And there was the field gang, the primers. But the boat driver was the guy who got to drive the tobacco from the field where the primers primed it to the table gang where they hung it up in the kiln. This is Boat Driver. And I actually was a boat driver for 1 year.
And me too.
Right before I went on tour with the Good Brothers.
I didn't do anything nearly as interesting after that.
It's 6 a.m. when I start up the truck. I kick off the mud from where I got stuck. I line up the baggies all in a row and I yell into the bunkhouse, come on, let's go. The primers are yellow and the tobacco's green, so I drive them in the field up to the primer machine. She starts right up, but there's blue smoke blowing, leaves are slapping faces and there's cussing and they're woeing. 20 minutes later, we're sleeping in the sun, but I gotta wake up because here they come. They load the tobacco on the back of my truck. I'm headed to the kill yard, hope I don't get stuck. Or they'll say, hey, boat driver, driving too slow. Hey, boat driver, took too long to unload. Hey, boat driver, can't be standing still. And how many loads before we fill the kill? Machines tying, the kill hangers hanging, the string cutters cutting and a buzzing and a clanging. I'm driving back and forth between the field and the kills. I'm missing all the corners, catching air on the hills. But if we work through lunch, we'll be done by 1. We got the rest of the night to go and have some fun. If it gets too late, I'm headed straight back to the farm to catch a couple Z's in the bunkhouse by the barn. Hey, boat driver, driving too slow. Hey, boat driver, took too long to unload. Hey, boat driver, can't be standing still. And how many loads before we fill the kill? I can't take any more. I'm gonna push the gas pedal through the hole in the floor. I'm headed past the fields and out on the road. This boat driver's driving his last load. No more, hey, boat driver, you're driving too slow. Hey, boat driver, took too long to unload. Hey, boat driver, can't be standing still. How many loads before we fill the kill?
Hey, boat driver.
That's it. Takes me back to the field.
Can I see your license?
That was the nice thing. You didn't actually need one, even though maybe you were on the road.
You could be 12.
I was just going to say, were you old enough anyway?
They put something so you could reach the gas pedal.
Yeah. Hey, Shane, do you want to play a fiddle tune?
I do.
You generally
I never got
do.
to drive one of those boats, unfortunately, but I saw plenty of them. We actually did live on the sandy part of the road, the Cowpath Road, right? And it was all tobacco fields when I was a kid too. And I stuck to the fiddle. I managed to do that. So we're going to play some fiddle tunes. The first one is Say Old Man, Can You Play the Fiddle? And then we're going to do a Bill Monroe tune, Big Mom. So. good.
And he can play the fiddle.
Not flossing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need a second just to put on a capo. And do some other necessary housekeeping on the guitar. So these two shots, these two, Darren and Allison, in the middle, they live. Their house is attached to an old dance hall called the Roosevelt Dance Hall from the 1940s, and it's this amazing Art Deco dance hall. That it's not technically in the middle of nowhere, but you can see it from there. and one of the great artifacts that's in the dance hall is a sign on the wall that says "Dancing on Standard Time," and what that meant was that they, even in the summertime, which I guess sort of high season for a lot of dances, they'd be operating on standard time, so that meant they could stay open. The dances could go on for an hour longer than everybody else's barn dances. And Darren told me about this, and I thought, well, there's a metaphor waiting to happen. And it turned into a love song. And yeah, it's a brand new song, or relatively new. New to us. A 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Romancers and dancers come out with the moon when the lights shimmer down on the floor, shuffle their feet and then break into step the second they walk through the door. Lovers and others, they'll swing and they'll sway,
caught up in the sights and the sound, and cast a glance at their phone. Then they'll leave us alone, together for one last go-round. Romancers and dancers have all left the hall, said goodnight to rhythm and rhyme. And we should have been home an hour ago, but we're dancing on standard time. Romancers and dancers are ready to move when the band counts it in with a smile. They never notice when we waltz to the clock and set back the hands on the dial. Lovers and others, they'll swing and they'll sway and dance till they can't dance no more. When the evening is flown, we'll be left all alone for one final turn round the floor. Romancers and dancers have all left the hall, said goodnight to rhythm and rhyme. And we should have been home an hour ago, but we're dancing on standard time. We're dancing on standard time. Well, that was romantic, wasn't it?
Beautiful.
Yeah. Was Eileen a dancer?
Eileen was a clapper.
And a hugger.
Yeah. She was at the front, in the very front row, and she was clapping, and you knew she was there, and you loved having her in the audience. I wish she was here right now.
By the way, who is Eileen?
Eileen was a dear family friend who adopted. She never had family of her own, but she adopted us as her family. And one day she was visiting with Darren, and she said, "You know, I'm very fond of the things I like."
Yes.
And Darren said, "That's going in a song about Eileen."
Yes.
She loves West Texas, she's around her, you know. She knows every tune, never misses a show. She claps out a rhythm, she's up on her feet. With Lee, Reg, and Eddie, her life is complete. Eileen, Eileen, I know just what you mean. You're very fond of the things you like, and there ain't no in between. Eileen, Eileen, those smiling Irish eyes. She'd love to hug and squeeze you. Don't be surprised. She's been to Nashville, seen all the stars, and she loves country music and men with guitars. Play her the fiddle, sweet steel guitar. Oh, Marshall's partial to who you are. Eileen, Eileen, I know just what you mean. You're very fond of the things you like, and there ain't no in between. Eileen, Eileen, those smiling Irish eyes, she'd love to hug and squeeze you. Don't be surprised. What you mean? You're very fond of the things you like. There ain't no in between. Eileen, Eileen, those smiling Irish eyes, she'd love to hug and squeeze you. Don't be surprised.
Thank you, Eileen.
Hey, Shane, you know any more fiddle tunes?
Do I? What am I on here? A tune for, I guess a tune for a fiddle in our family. It's these days our son, our 7-year-old, is about to start taking fiddle lessons. He's had 2 already, but he's not quite there yet.
Yeah, figured out if they took, yeah.
We'll see. Give him, 20 years?
Yeah.
We'll see. But I come from a family of fiddlers, and my brother Kyle being one of them. And our son Charlie named this tune for my brother's fiddle. It's called Kyle's Fiddle.
It's a song about your brother.
Pardon?
No.
Sorry.
Well, brother theme.
I have one of my brothers in this next song, yes. The next song is going to be called Subway Bob. There's an old folk tune called Railroad Bill, and I kind of stole that and made it updated, I thought, because, railroad and then subway, so. And Bob was very lonely, needed a lot of brothers, so there's a lot of verses. I hope I can remember them. Here it goes. 1, 2, 3.
Subway Bob, he's been riding on the blue train since he lost his job. That's how he rides. Oh, when he rides. Subway Bob has got a brother named Bill. He rides on the railroad till he gets his fill. That's how he rides. Oh, when he rides. Subway Bob and Railroad Bill got a brother named Darryl. He's got a Grim Reaper painted on his gas tank, and he'll fly past it just like an arrow. That's how he rides. Oh, when he rides. Now Bob and Bill and Darryl, they've got a brother named Wayne. He's riding on real slow overhead in his steam-powered aeroplane. That's how he rides. Oh, when he rides. Operates the sonar on a nuclear submarine. That's how he rides. When he rides. Bob and Bill and Darryl and Wayne and Dean got a brother named Nathan. He's cruising around the Earth in the International Space Station. That's how he rides. When he rides. There's only one way that this story can go. Bob and all his brothers got picked up by UFO. That's how they ride with them little green guys.
I think I missed a couple brothers, but I don't care.
You have to speak. You got to answer to your mother. We're going to carry on. Actually, I noticed all my songs seem to have a dancing thing, since that's the last thing we're not allowed to do at this point. And this is a song that I wrote to the tune. There's a wonderful Métis fiddle player named Reg Bouvette, who died a few years ago, wrote lots and lots of great tunes out in Manitoba, including a beautiful waltz called the Teardrop Waltz. hold that thought. The Teardrop Waltz. And when my friend Ann Letterman and I used to play square dances and contour dances, and very often we'd use the Teardrop Waltz as the home waltz, just because it's such a romantic tune. Wouldn't you agree? And, you know, the home waltz is that part in the evening at an old-time dance that's charged with possibilities, you know, where everybody's dancing around and half of them are thinking loving, possibly lustful thoughts, and the other half are wondering if they left the car lights on, but
Or if someone took the whiskey from the wheel well.
That's right. Yeah. And that was at the other dance. And so I decided I wanted an excuse to play this tune when it wasn't the home waltz of a dance, so I wrote some words to it. Shane's gonna kick it off for us. There's a chill in the air and a bright hunter's moon to guide our steps home when we go. But there's still one more chance, there's just one last dance, and the fiddler will play soft and slow. You can dance with the sweetheart you came with tonight. You can dance with the new one you found. But the last waltz, it seems, goes on in your dreams till next Saturday night rolls around. Not the laughter of friends as the evening ends. It's not the sound of the fiddles I hear. It's the warmth of your breath on the wings of a wish as you whisper a word in my ear. You can dance with the sweetheart you came with tonight. You can dance with the new one you found. But the last waltz, it seems, goes on in your dreams till next Saturday night rolls around. You can dance with the sweetheart you came with tonight. You can dance with the new one you found. But the last waltz, it seems,
till next Saturday night rolls around. Till next Saturday night rolls around. So, we've come to the end almost, and we'd like to thank the Aeolian Hall. Yay, for putting on these great shows for us.
Yes.
Yes.
And we certainly enjoyed this one.
Yes.
I found it much easier to play without bottles being thrown at us and stuff.
And they've been doing this all through the plague. And good on them for that, and good on you for subscribing to this, to be part of it as well. And everybody's been doing their bit, and this has been a good bit to be done by the gang here. So we're going to finish off with a couple of fiddle tunes, because we know Shane knows some fiddle tunes. We've established this earlier in the evening. What's it going to be?
We've got, well, an Ontario classic and then a Ned Landry classic. We've got the Buck Fever Rag, Reg Hill tune, an old one, and then Bow on the Strings. And Ian is going to step in. So. All right.
Thank you. Good night.